This is All India Radio. Life must go on. All India Radio in collaboration with Vigyan-Prasar presents Science Serial Life Must Go On, based on understanding and managing sustainable development. Let's listen to episode number 24, based on listeners' letters.
It's a pleasure and a privilege to welcome three gentlemen to the studios of All India Radio. Dr. R. Gopichandran, former Director Vigyan-Prasar, Shri B.K. Tyagi, Senior Scientist with Vigyan-Prasar, and we're also joined by Shri K.B. Biswas, former Chairman, Central Groundwater Board, Ministry of Water Resources and Ganga Rejuvenation. This is the 24th episode of the science serial Life Must Go On. Today, we will focus more on issues related to water. Before I go on to Shri Biswas, my first question will be to Shri B.K. Tyagi. We are well into the 24th episode.
Yeah.
Just a quick reflection on the way the serial is moving ahead.
I think the response is very good. In this, the entire sequencing, if you see, in the first segment, we try to understood what is, when we are talking about sustainable development, what exactly does it mean. Then there are three issues which we have taken, especially like the understanding sustainability on three parameters, like the environment, the social development, and the economic development. And then there are certain issues when we talk about the equal access to resources, natural resources, then water is one such resource, and everybody has a right to use it, because without water the life cannot sustain, because in fact if we go by evolution wise, the life was originated in fact into the water, and since then this trend is there. So we are talking about this social aspect in which the water is, the gender equality is there, and we are talking about the sustainable agriculture, sustainable industrialization, sustainable mining. These all are the issues which we are going to cover in coming episodes.
Okay. Quickly, Dr. Gopichandran, you've had a long association with this serial and even many more serials before this. Your assessment of the way things have moved?
Most grateful as always to this wonderful medium in our country for reaching out to all our fellow citizens. To be very precise, Manoj, the most important objective of an initiative like this is to deliver appropriate information in a timely manner. If you look at it from that perspective, I think Vigyan-Prasar has to be congratulated for two reasons. Number one is the timeliness, and number two, contextualizing whatever is being discussed for the benefit of our citizens. Now, going ahead, the various facets of sustainability by themselves are being addressed systematically. I know the importance of this kind of a deliberation, and therefore, even as Dr. Biswas, Mr. Biswas will deliberate on the qualitative and the quantitative aspects of water resources, one most important takeaway from a deliberation like this is the interplay of three extremely important factors of management. One is the regulatory framework. We might have a huge quantity of water resource, but are there regulations which say, look, this far, no further, in terms of extraction or even in terms of contamination? We might have excellent regulations, but do we have incentives by which people will be inspired beyond their own innate tendencies to protect? To say, look, by good behavior, I am being rewarded for protecting, and by bad behavior, I am being reprimanded. Okay? So, market-based instruments which can promote good behavior and retard bad behavior is the second facet. So, first is regulation, second is market-based instruments. The third facet is about an institutional mechanism, which says if an authority, a regulatory or any other, say for instance, a financial institution that works with the government devises an interesting mechanism, can we reach the unreached with this information? And if some good work is happening at some part of the country, how do we make it visible for the rest of the country? Do we have major stakeholder networks by which various activities are assigned to them and they are able to reach out to stakeholders? So these three facets, regulatory, market-based mechanisms and institutional mechanisms, are cross-cutting through the entire domain of sustainable development. Qualitative aspects of water resources, one. Quantitative aspects is another. So we should look at interplay, and I'm using the word interplay for the second time, for intelligent use of the resource and therefore make it sustainable.
Dr. Biswas, if you look at the globe, most of it appears blue. Do we really face a scarcity of water, or what is it? How do we look at it?
Thank you, Mr. Manoj. First of all, let everybody should know that water is basically finite source. Why I'm talking about, we are talking about it looks, if you take the aerial view or the satellite views, it looks like, green. But there are places it will give you red colors and something like that. So, water is basically finite source. So, if you compare with the 1947, what the water is available per capita, it is something like more than 5,000 meter cube per capita. As on date, it has come down to something like a 1400 meter cube. 1400 meters cube. And the unfortunate part is that day by day people are dependent on the groundwater. Groundwater. If you take up what is the main sources, let everybody understand what is the main sources of that water. That is basically total precipitation takes place on the earth, that is particularly in our India. That is around 4,000 billion cubic meter, out of which that utilizable water is around 1,860 billion cubic meter. And actually water can be utilized, that is, that is summing up the both groundwater and the surface water, it is around 1120 to 1140 BCM. Out of which 690 is the surface water, groundwater is varies from 430 to 440, 45 BCM kilometer. But since 1970, see, we had, if you compare with the 1947, the population growth as on date is almost 3 times, but the water source is constant. But the fortunate part is that we are having a sufficient food grains. This food grain, this green revolution is basically is nothing but, it was totally dependent on the groundwater. It was nothing but a tubal revolution. So since 1970 or say late 70s, the food grain is grown up based on the groundwater only, the sources. Now the question is why it is groundwater based. Because as per our Easement Act, groundwater basically somebody will say it is a state subject, somebody will say we can bring it to the concurrence matter in the central subject, but basically it is individual subject. Because as per Easement Act, everybody is having their own right. And secondly, it is easily accessible. So groundwater, a poorest man of the village, he can take the water from his land. Even if we are having only 100 square meters, he can also withdraw the water. And it is easily accessible. Secondly, though we have a lot of surface water network, canal system, all these things, but there is a lot of difference between the tail end and the canal command area. So ultimately the people are getting dependent on the groundwater. It is easily accessible. And another issue is that people has gone to the cash crop. Cropping pattern. Say, if you consider as on date, our darkest areas, particularly groundwater point of view, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan. Punjab, if you go to the 40 years back, 30 years, their main product was wheat and the corn, like these sort of things. But they have switched over. Their main production and income is the paddy and the rice. And rice, and it is totally, this production is based on the groundwater. So their water level has gone down even 80 meters, 100 meters in the Punjab and this Haryana.
Even sugarcane, I believe.
Sugarcane. Another thing is sugarcane. Say, consider about the Maharashtra. We know that Maharashtra is a sugar producer state. But actually, as per the climate condition, Maharashtra should not produce the sugar cane. Sometimes I talk, in the other way also. Our food habit, our everything is dependent on the climate. So the main thing, we have gone beyond the climate. What the nature has given, we have gone beyond that. Our production, our agriculture product. So our main stays in the agriculture, that is the changing of cropping pattern. People have shifted from the traditional product, traditional crop to their cash crop. See, the people have migrated, particularly sugarcane, the laborers have migrated to Mauritius, Fiji, even the West Indies from mainly from Bihar and Eastern UP. That means the original sugarcane production was in the Eastern UP and Bihar, and we are having a plenty of water. We are having a plenty of surface water. We are having a plenty of groundwater in these two states, in the eastern states. Now talking about the groundwater, the main sources is the rainfall, say, and the snow melting. So entire groundwater surface is depending on that. Say consider from the western state, particularly Rajasthan. So there is a rainfall of 50 millimeters. To go to the northeastern state is 5,000 millimeters. So your the water availability also depending on that. So actually, if you take say at the zero level, go to the original level, the water, there is a rainfall, where it goes. Certain water will flow from the surface, either in the shape of the river or spring or something like that, and some water will go to the inside, that is to the underground. The underground water is depending on the rainfall, and secondly how much white is available, whether is it having their storage capacity. So the formation also is very important, your hydrogeological formation. So in India, if you divide the total India, around 30% is the, we call a unconsolidated formations. That is the alluvial base, that is mostly in the Ganga basin, Brahmaputra basin, some part of the Godavari basin. Other 70% is the hard rock. Say you go to the Maharashtra, even the Bundelkhand area, the other state, the Karnataka and these states, rainfall is not that less. But their storageability in the underground is very less.
Okay.
It doesn't sustain. That sustainability, what you are talking about, the sustainability of the groundwater, it depends on the your rainfall. It depends on the how much storageability, how much capacity is having in the underground to hold it, depending on its formations. So these are the main thrust area. Now we are having a, because people in India is totally nowadays depending on the groundwater, particularly agriculture sectors. Simultaneously, drinking water in comparison as a layman, if you call the as on that 85% drinking water in the rural area, it is basically from the groundwater. Even in the urban areas, that is 50% from support is from it, and more than 60% agriculture product is from the groundwater. As on that GDP product, almost 9% impact is from the groundwater. So it is a highly stressed condition, and the groundwater withdrawal in India is more than the China and USA. So these are the main areas. So now the talk about the sustainable management. So government cannot do it. What Mr. Gopichandra is telling is very correct. You have to have the institutional mechanism. Government alone cannot support it. So Central Groundwater Board last 2.5 years as chairman on that. So we are doing National Aquifer Mapping and Management Program. National Aquifer Mapping means everybody has to, that is, we will be preparing a map of 300 meters in alluvial area and 200 meters in hard rock area. So every farmer, everybody will be able to know that under his feet how much water is available, at what depth, and how much he can withdraw. So we have suggested for a participatory groundwater management.
Okay.
Sustain, because participatory management is water doesn't follow any boundary. What water I am withdrawing in my land, maybe I am taking from my neighbor.
True.
That water may be from neighbor. So that's why you require a participatory management. If not aquifer management, let us have a society should be involved totally. Everybody should know how much water is available, how much can withdraw, and what sort of crop. From changing from cash crop to the suitable crop, you require a very much strong political will. If a farmer, if they want to switch over from one crop to other crop, their income also get effects. So that is also very, very important. So those are those areas to be solved.
You analyzed it so well, Dr. Biswas. As I said, when you observe the globe, most of it appears blue. So my point is, in the total water basket of India or the world, if you look globally, does seawater have any role to play in the total basket?
If you talk about the scientific data, seawater plays a very, very important role. That your precipitation, where from you are getting that, ultimately the cloud forms based on the, evaporation takes place from the, based on the sea waters. The temperature rises there, the surface from that also plays a big role. And secondly, nowadays particularly in the coastal area, now what is the impact of groundwater withdrawal? Due to that over-exploited, as on date around 30% area of the groundwater condition is stress conditions. We define as a overexploited, critical, and semi-critical. If you combine up to around 16% area, blocks are overexploited. Around 4% are your critical, around 10%, more than 10% is semi-critical. And in the coastal area, due to overwidth, there is saline ingressations. So protection of the saline of that, and for the drinking water purpose of that, if you go to the Arabian countries, now they have stated, I mean, they are also that a desalination plant. So drinking water, we have to divide two categories. Use of water, one is the drinking water, one is for the irrigation and other purpose industries. So drinking water actually, it should be not the responsibility of the individual persons. It should be responsibility of the supply sides. I mean, governments and the statutory body to ensure that to provide a safe and potable drinking water to everybody. So, the frankly speaking, desalination is the ultimate. It is only you can afford only for the drinking water purpose. Because desalination plant, okay, it's you can have a desalination plant, but in the because recently IOR, the Indian Oceans countries, there is a seminar. People, particularly South Africa, the African coastal countries, they are going for desalination for the drinking water. But this cannot support for the your irrigation purpose. So it's ultimate options, ultimate for the drinking water. And it is also depending on your cost, how much you can afford. But as on date, being a groundwater mass, I am very much confident, still we are having a sufficient water, but only thing is that it is not distributed properly. Secondly, the population actually nowadays, if you go from the old days also, cities were developed based on the river. Now the cities are developed based on the highways only. And later on they are searching how will they get the waters. So that is the most unfortunate part. See, particularly I am very sorry to say, Rajasthan, they are developing so many industrial cities without source of water. They are totally dependent on groundwater. I asked for regulation, no, I used to hold my head and to see that how they will run. Even after 10 years, they don't know where they will get the water. It's an unfortunate one. So basically, there are so many criteria. Now the cities are getting developed here without knowing the sources of water. That is the basic need.
Dr. Gopichandran, if you look through the lens of Vigyan-Prasar, has the idea of rainwater harvesting been able to, let me use the word, permeate into the general psyche?
We should not mistake the delivery of information to imbibing the spirit of that information. If you ask, therefore, are all states aware of the importance of rainwater harvesting and groundwater recharge? The answer is yes. But to what extent is it being translated? Because I am sure Bishwas will be able to also help us understand. There are very critical dynamics regarding water recharging also. One has to be very careful and all parameters pertaining to the permeability and then the water levels themselves and their implications on infrastructure are all highly interrelated aspects. So a more serious answer to your question is, are we prepared enough to be able to use these practices safely, and to what extent do we believe there will be cost benefit balancing? That takes me to another very important aspect. Things like water conservation should not be seen only from a economic standpoint. It is equally important even for ecosystem services to be sustained. In the case of, let's say, the wetlands management, we simply cannot say that we've got enough water, we don't have to really be worried about wetlands. Wetlands play a very, very important role in providing very important what are called ecosystem services. So the direct answer to your question, while the level of awareness is high, the preparedness to translate it into real life is still far more desirable to reach the levels of success that we need in our country.
I want to add what Gopiji has said, because water harvesting it was a tradition in India. All these ponds, bowries, and these were in the area where the river was not very near. So we were harvesting that. In fact, it just happened when we got a municipal supply of water. That time we start discarding those traditional practices. I think now there is a time to, even in the villages also, all these ponds, bowries are, they're just drying up. Because there is a municipal water supply, but the day when the water is not coming in their tap, then there is a whole crisis over there. Then at that time there is a realization that why we not have kept it in a proper shape and all that. And the thing has because of some awareness, even to which Vigyan-Prasar has been also created, taken up a lot of awareness program on water. there is a, one sense is now prevailing that we have to respect those traditional practices. We have to recharge those traditional water reservoirs.
Mr. Biswas had a point on rainwater harvesting.
We have to actually separate two things. One is water conservation. How will conserve it? Either you conserve from direct source or the rainwaters. So, and conserving where? Either you are conserving in the surface, and secondly, if you feel you can conserve it in the underground, that is called as artificial research. So you define in this way, two way. So what he was talking very correct. Water conservation, it is traditional. Since ancient days, people are conserving the waters. Water harvesting and conserving it. But mostly it is in the surface. Either in the body or the sense of tank, tanka, these are things they are conserving it. Wherever there is you see the most of the lakes you would find the measure in the Rajasthan and this because there is a water crisis. So they are conserving the surface. Nowadays we found when you are conserving in the surface, there is more than 50% is the evaporation losses. And that too where temperature goes more than 40 degrees centigrade, so it is loss of loss. So the best way of conserving is found it is suitable in the underground. Now I am talking about the artificial research. Everybody is talking about the artificial research. Artificial research, now we have carried out so many steps. There are places artificial research of groundwater is very much essential, but you don't have the source. You are not having sufficient water to have the artificial research. There are plenty of water like eastern state and northeastern states. There are plenty of waters, but you don't require anything to get research in the underground because your groundwater level is very shallow. So these are the discussion. So water conservation, but as on date, we have already Central Groundwater Board. We have prepared a master plan of India for artificial research that has been circulated. We have given to the drinking water, the sanitary commissioner, as well as the urban ministry. Through Munrega also, we are trying to implement the groundwater artificial research and water conservation structures. That master plan we have already circulated to all the ministries and to have that. Artificial nowadays, so at the beginning I have told source is finite. Our total rainfall, total water, whether it flows in the surface or in the total is constant. But our increasing demand, because population growth, industrial growth, demand is very high. So water conservation and artificial research of underground, this is the nowadays it should be at the most priority. So Central Groundwater Board, we are along with the aquifer mapping, we are getting aquifer management plan. Management plan doesn't mean only at how to use the water. It is not like that. So also it includes the artificial research, water conservation, everything. So it is the most basic priority for the government, for the society, for everybody.
Yes. Mr. Tyagi, can we now have a look at the letters that we've received for different episodes of this serial? I can see a few names here. There's a student named Zainab Fatima from Shahjahanpur, Madhya Pradesh. Then there is Ravi Shankar Chandrakar Devan from Badola Bazar, Chhattisgarh. Then there's Ram Singh Rajput from a remote village called Odera in district Hamirpur, Uttar Pradesh.
Okay.
Then there's a group of students, Gudiya Chaturvedi, Ram Sakhi, Aarti, Pooja, Kiran Rajput, again from Hamirpur, Uttar Pradesh. From the same place, there's Balendra Kumar Rajput, and finally Sanjeev Kumar, who's a regular listener. He's from Karnal, Haryana. All of them have listened to most of our episodes. Of course, they've specified here what episode they tuned into. But more or less, people have been writing in, and most of them have mentioned the fact that they have benefited a lot from what they learned from this radio program.
Yeah, and I also have received a few mail. This is Amit Kumar, and then the other is a Neeraj Kumar, then this is a Lavkesh Kumar Rajput. So these are few emails which we have received. I think in this episode we are not announcing the name of the winner. I think we'll take it in the next interactive episode. But we hope these kinds of letter and emails give us an encouragement to and confidence also to put more effort to make the program more interesting and more relevant, as Gopiji was saying.
Gopiji, your reflection on the kind of response and enthusiasm that young people, you wouldn't expect an 8th standard student to understand what sustainable development is really about, but yet letters do come in.
Manoj, on the other hand, I think children are probably the most sensitive, Yeah, if you tell them don't litter, they are inspired from within to not. Something happens probably when people grow, and there's a lot of cross wiring in their heads, I suppose. So, that leads to this chaos. I'm sure Biswas ji and Tyagi Saab will also agree with me that India has to now report periodically on the extent to which her citizens are aware and are responsive to calls for action, especially through bilateral, multilateral agreements or through India's own posturing when it comes to sustainable development. In that context, I think if we ask whether we have reached out to our citizens, I think the All India Radio has to be saluted for giving Vigyan-Prasar this opportunity to reach out to our citizens. That is stream 1. Stream 2 is, are we seeing any signals of responses from people? The answer is evident. Therefore, to sum up the effectiveness of this engagement, I would say this is the best way ahead, and I think it should only be fostered further with the involvement of thematic experts. And on Vigyan-Prasar's behalf, even as the past director, I've got the courage to say thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful, and salutations to Manoj, you, the All India Radio, and everyone. It's a great coming together.
Honored. Well, let us conclude. This is just an informal question to Mr. Biswas. Not that you've been associated with children per se, you've been more of an institutional man. But since, as Gopiji mentioned, the individual contribution, would you like to advise or just tell people on an individual level, how can one contribute as a person?
Everybody should understand water is his own property. When he consider it is his own property, he should also protect it. Nowadays, everybody thinks of the future of the children. So what we do, we want to save the money, save the wealth, but we have to save the waters for our future generations. Let us join hand together. Don't leave it for the government or somebody else. It is your water, you save it, and how best way you can utilize it. And the demand side management is totally depending on the individuals.
With that message, I would like to thank Mr. Biswas, Dr. Gopichandran and Mr. Tyagi for this stimulating session on a subject that is so close to our heart, water.
Thank you very much.
Life must go on. You were listening to the 24th episode of this science serial produced by All India Radio in collaboration with Vigyan-Prasar, based on listeners' letters. Participating experts were Dr. R. Gopichandran, former director, Vigyan-Prasar; Dr. K.B. Biswas, former Chairman, Central Groundwater Board, CGWB, Ministry of Water Resources; Dr. Birendra Kumar Tyagi, Scientist and Coordinator, Science Serial Life Must Go On; and Manoj Menkar, who was moderating the program. Presented by Bilal Jha. Recording and mixing by Diksha Sharma. You can send in your answers by simple post. Our address is Science Serial Life Must Go On, All India Radio, room number 615, New Broadcasting House, Sansad Marg, New Delhi 110001. You can also write on our email ID radio@vigyanprasar.gov.in. Please do write in or mail us your full name, age and profession. If associated with any science club, then do let us know the membership of your club. If you have got any query or question related to this, don't hesitate to write to us. We will be back again with the next episode of this science serial. Life must go on. Same day, same time, next week. Till then, goodbye.